welcome to a very special R. Sinclair. I'm your good buddy, your good pal, amigo Aaron, joined as always by my compatriot, the Brent. This week, we will be leaving our normal fare on R. Sinclair and once again dipping our toe in the pool of modern ZX Spectrum Next software,
Yes.
as we'll be looking at the modern reimagining of Head Over Heels. Head Over Heels from the people over at Rusty Pixels. You'll recall, if you're a longtime listener, viewer of R. Sinclair, myself and the boat, John Boat of Carshaller, actually looked at the original Head Over Heels a few years back, the Brent. So far back that I don't remember exactly what we said, but I'm sure, as always, I will remain constant in my opinions and stick to my guns. That's the theory, anyway.
That's on tape. You could have at least went back and looked at what you said.
I try not to ever go back and look at anything I've ever done because of the massive embarrassment that it causes me. I want to mention here at the start of this that you'll recall, gosh, was it earlier this year or last year? We did a ZX Next game called Baggers in Space.
Yes.
And this is also from Rusty Pixels. And I got in contact with a fellow from Rusty Pixels who was like, he thought he was down with our look at it. He was very kind.
Yeah.
And he liked our look, and because we try to be fair about this stuff. And he was like, listen, I'd like for you guys to check out another one of our offerings. And so I was like, sure, we'll give it a whirl. So he sent us over, he comped us a copy,
A review copy
of Head Over Heels. And we appreciate that from Rusty Pixels. Now, with all that said, we will be our usual non-biased selves, because that's what can you do?
Yeah.
But we do appreciate that. And if you are into ZX Next stuff and you haven't checked out the offerings at Rusty Pixels, you're nuts. Go get Baggers in Space right now.
Yeah.
As far as I'm concerned, that's a must buy.
If you are dipping your toes into the next Spectrum Next world, Baggers was an incredible game.
Yeah.
And we're going to find out today, Aaron, if Head Over Heels can join it in its greatness.
Yeah. Now, before we get into the look at Head Over Heels proper, I want to acknowledge one of our buddies from the Discord, good friend of ours and a supporter. I asked who's Scooby, the Scoob, if you will. Now, Scoob is a very generous guy.
Yes.
He donated a lot of stuff for Boat Fest auctions. He sent us many things over the years. And he contacted me, 4 months ago or so, and asked me if I would be interested in him sending me a ZX Next clone. I was like, sure, let me make you a money offer on this, and then just sent it anyway. So I didn't get to make him a money offer; he just gave it to me. Which, boy, that was awful nice of him. And so, if you're watching at home, this is the Ingo ZX Next clone. Spin that around a little bit, Brent. Let them see every part of it. This is a clone of the ZX Next, which is virtually impossible to get outside of the Kickstarter or actually, going through and buying one on eBay. And this is a real nice cloned version. And this isn't the cheapo version either. It's got the good keyboard. And he also sent me the a Pi Zero insert and an additional breakout thing that lets you put in additional SD cards. So it's got one SD card on the slide. I can't imagine why you'd need. I'm sure there's some like super geek that could tell you why you would need additional cards for whatever reason, but I don't. But beautiful. It sent me a 6-button Genesis controller to go with it, and a mouse and speakers. All right, so he sent everything. I know he thought of everything, and I really appreciate that. And I will say I played this week's game, so this is the first time I've got to play a ZX Next game on an actual. I mean, mostly an actual ZX Next.
Oh yeah.
And then I also gave it a whirl in the Mister and I had zero problems with either version of the game.
And I went emulator route again, like I
Yeah.
did with Baggers, and had no problems. I did, oddly enough, when we played Baggers, and I went back to Baggers a couple weeks later and played through it some more, and then I was like, all right, I'm going to put this aside, and ended up deleting my next folder. I don't know why.
Idiot.
I'm sure I was in
I saved it. Don't worry.
no, I'm sure I was in some kind of desperate need for space because
Yeah.
this laptop's not got a huge hard drive.
Yeah.
So I reassembled all that emulator again for this week's show, and it was much easier this time.
Yeah.
Once you do it once, you kind of get the feel for it, and you can get in there and get it done. So, but I looked at it on emulator. You looked at it on emulated hardware.
Right.
So I think we've got all our bases covered in that regard.
Yeah. I do want to. One thing I was wondering, and this is a clarion call. This thing has, these ZX Next have the microphone and headphone jacks in them, just like a proper Spectrum. And I noticed that these ZX Next files are a file format, and I'm assuming that most, if not all, ZX Next games don't come on tape. I guess they all come on SD cards. I don't know if anybody likes the visceral pleasure of letting it say, because that could take a while to load.
No one's doing that, Aaron.
But it's
First of all, I'd be like, you have to span it across like 30 tapes.
It's something that occurred to me. I will say, and also just for closure before we move on, I loaded up some classic ZX on the old Ingo here, and I will say, having integrated, because we have a Spectrum. In fact, it's in this very table here. We've got a Speccy with the built-in tape drive, and it works great. But I will say, the convenience of an SD card, the 6-button joystick, the built-in ports, primo stuff. And I can see why there's next. We got to look at Mitsuyama last year's Boat Fest. He brought an actual ZX Next to the show. This thing is a beauty.
Yeah.
This is not as beautiful as that, but it is as functional as that. And probably the keyboard, I'd say, would be at least on par, if not better. It's got a pretty good keyboard.
Got a real good
but
keyboard.
I mean, a beautiful device that everyone should be proud of. So, with us putting over the Next like that, we have to place some stuff on the Next. And so we thought we would. Now, in case you've been living under a rock, you'll probably remember that the Head Over Heels was originally released way back on the original ZX Spectrum. So we thought we'd give a quick primer, Brent, on that one before we move on to the more modern version. I mean, quick. So, the original Head Over Heels released in '87, developed published by Ocean, and was originally priced, Brent, at £7.95p, which is. So if you think about if you think about how popular this game was, I don't know if you know this, but this is one of the most popular games on the ZX. The original got released on a slew of stuff, everything from the Amstrads, the Atari, C64s, Amigas, MSXs. There are modern remakes. It's an unofficial port, I think, to the Commodore 16. I think even got a port. So it got around. The author was a fellow named John Rittman, who was responsible for a couple big games, not just this one. He did Match Day and Match Day 2 and Batman. So he was killing it back in the day. And also Bernie Drummond, who also worked on Batman and Match Day, and a few other fellows, F. David Thorpe and Guy Stevens. So they had a good crew on this that had a lot of good experience. And the original game, and really this hasn't changed, has you basically controlling two different characters in an elaborate multi-room dungeon, I guess would be the best way to put it. We'll get more into it when we break into to our current game.
For those watching at home, we've got a little bit of the original up on the screen.
And now you can notice, of course, what you got on the original ZX, Brent, was you got a lot of times monochrome colors. This is as close to monochrome. There's splashes of other colors. But what you also get, what makes the Spectrum, the original Spectrum, so awesome is the fact that you get these highly detailed graphics.
Yeah.
I mean, you think to yourself, I know when I hear the word monochrome, I'm just like, oh, God, Hercules graphics. But these are, the ZX can produce some exquisite, detailed graphics, and these graphics were that.
Yeah.
Beautiful, beautiful, lovely graphics. That's part of the fun. And also, of course, this was it's a huge area to explore with your two characters who had unique abilities. A fun game. You can see why it was so popular because it's got that exploration angle, and the way it was put together was quite clever. I mean, you could map. I've seen maps of this, and they're epically huge. I mean, they're monstrous maps. This game, of course, they went on to sell zillions of copies, won a lot of awards. Anytime you get a game that gets ported that much, you're going to do pretty well for yourself. So let's flash forward, Brent. Now we're not coming up to 2024. We're going to come up to 2020. I heard a interview, or it was a radio show or a podcast that Simon Butler did. I'll get into him in a minute. But it does shed some light on how this game came into being. This game was not just a smooth game that came out without any problems. So the ZX Next, of course, was a Kickstarter, the actual machine.
Sure.
And when they did that, they part of the stretch goals were certain games, and I believe Baggers in Space was one of those games. I believe. I think maybe it was. I don't know if it was an expansion for Baggers or whatever it was, but anyway, they mixed it in. When they did the second round of the Kickstarters, Head Over Heels was one of the games that was mixed into that Kickstart. It was Kickstart 2. And so the fellow that did the graphics, Simon Butler, mentions that he started work on this in October of 2020. And he said he knocked out his graphics for this thing in about a month. So his job, and we'll get into how he did, his job was to modernize, retool, like colorify, make better graphics that were sort of a tribute to the originals. So he said after that, he turned in his graphics, and then nothing happened for 3 years. And eventually, Head Over Heels was the only Kickstarter game that wasn't delivered at that point. So finally, and he even mentions that the fellow that was going to be programming it tried to throw him under the bus. Because, well, you know how it goes.
Oh, yeah.
And so they basically, and I tried to find out who the original programmer was. I could not find it. Probably better off. Whoever it was, they booted him. And they brought in the fellow that ultimately brought this thing down the pipeline, which was Michael Flash Ware. Flash is a good name for this guy, nickname, because he jumped in there, and Simon said within days of him taking over and starting from scratch, he had rooms and he had things moving around and had made progress within days. Keep in mind, this thing sat on the shelf for 3 years. In 2 months, Flash Ware went from scratch to having the game, around 2/3 completed. So this guy wasn't screwing around, and ultimately, they had hoped they would have this out by Christmas of last year. Didn't happen, but it was shortly after Christmas. I believe right around March was when they ultimately were able to fulfill and deliver this thing to the masses, Head Over Heels for the ZX Next. I've got the release date at March 4th. So interesting behind the scenes look. I hadn't heard any of this stuff.
Right. Yeah, it is.
So again, we mentioned this was developed by Rusty Pixels. Rusty is responsible for Baggers in Space and its additional content. Warhawk, Tiverian, Scramble, Crowley World Tour. They also worked on I think a PC version of Baggers in Space. Get this, I saw this amongst their output. Manic Miner Lost Levels on the DS. I never heard of that.
Huh.
And Warhawk on the DS. I never heard of that. I mentioned that the coder for this was Michael Flash Ware. He worked on Baggers, of course, Tiverian, Warhawk, Scramble, Crowley, Tanny, and most of the output of the current guys. I want to get into, I mentioned him earlier, Simon Butler. Now, Simon Butler, there's 2 ways to look at Simon. There is no disputing that he is one of the grand masters of 8-bit graphical programming or art. He calls it pushing pixels. I mean, his portfolio is ridiculous. He's worked on 300 or he's over 300 individual titles. He's worked for all the big outfits, Ocean, Team 17, Atari, everybody, right? He's worked on, everything from this, which is probably one of the highlights of his career, all the way back down to something like Highlander for the ZX, which is considered one of the worst games for the ZX Spectrum. But I mean, the graphics are good. I mean, he's worked on tons of stuff. I looked at his Moby credit list just to get a couple ideas of what he'd worked on. I mean, he worked on a Street Fighter title, if you can believe it. According to this, he worked on Street Fighter Alpha 3 for the GBA,
Oh
which
man,
is
that game is beautiful.
it's an outstanding game.
Oh yeah.
I wanted to bring that up because I knew you loved that
Oh
one.
yeah.
Uh,
That's amazing.
and I mean, Allegiance to Larry titles, Garfield's Army. I mean, a ludicrous list and a massive amount of ZX games as well. So this guy is a prolific pixel pusher. Now, he's also the original grumpy old man of gaming. He, if you listen to, there's a show, a long-running show named Retro Gaming Roundup, and which sprung from Retro Gaming Radio, which I used to listen to at Shane Monroe. These guys, there was a time where those two shows were like intermingled before they kind of broke off. And Simon was added as a segment, I don't know, 5 or 6 years ago, maybe longer. And his segment is one of my favorite things because Simon will just bury people, burials. That's what he does. And like he set people straight. He'll I listened to the last couple episodes where he would just get on there and get on Facebook and they'd have these conversations and he would just murderize everyone in the Facebook one by one and consider every line.
Legit murder?
Like verbal murder.
No. Legit, he had points or he just...
Oh, he had points. But when you break down a Facebook post, I mean, sure, you're going to be able to go into a lot further depth than the guy that just rounded off something in his car. But like this guy and colorful beatdown to beat the band. He does not have any restrictions on the language he uses. And since he's over in the UK, I get to hear all sorts of colorful slang that I've never heard before. So I from one grumpy old bum to another, I give him the high sign on that. So not only is he a talented pixel pusher, but he's a talented badmouther. He's even badmouthed some of my buddies. But what are you gonna do? It happens. So I don't hold that against him. But
you're next in line, Aaron.
Hey, listen. I'm just saying. When you're super talented, you can get away with just murdering suckers, and that's the way it is. But he won't take any crap. That's for sure. So how did he do? Well, let's find out. With the credits aside, let's move into the. I should mention the music before we move on. Was Alan? Alan Ishov Bishrup Sorensen. All right. He's worked on almost all the Rusty Pixel stuff, plus a few other things, including Genius Greedy, Mouse, and Snake Slider, among other things. He did even a little bit of code on some of those. So this guy, another guy who's multi-talented. Okay. Credits aside. If you've ever, do you want to try to, let me give you the plot of this game, and then that will probably go a long way. Okay.
All right.
And this is, I thought they did a pretty good job summarizing this. So I'm just going to read. So, Hedius Malthion, head, and Footus Undurium, heels, are two spies from the planet Freedom. They are sent to Blacktooth to liberate the enslaved planets of Penitentiary, Safari, Bookworld, and Egyptus, and then to defeat the Emperor to prevent further planets falling under his rule. Captured and separated, the spies are placed in the prison headquarters at Castle Blacktooth and must escape, then break through the market to the orbiting moon base where they can teleport down to the planets to locate and reobtain the stolen crowns. Liberation of the planets and defeat of the Empire will allow Head and Heels to return to freedom as heroes. That is a much more universal plot than I would have guessed. I would have guessed. So, Head over Heels, the characters. I'm going to say one is sort of let's say a sort of a fishy-looking guy with boxing gloves on and a big blue nose, and he's bald. And Heels is sort of like 2 feet attached to the head of like a puppy with a bow. It's an unusual couple of heroes, Brent.
It is. It is.
To start with. What did you when this thing pops up? You get a lovely splash screen, beautiful artwork on even on splash screen. You knew right away you were in for a visual treat. Um, you had not played the original, right?
Correct.
And so, did you go back and have a look at the original?
No, just to grab footage. So okay, let me get into my experience.
Get into it. So Brett came in totally fresh.
And this is a unique perspective because I'm going to assume a lot of people who are buying this game or looking at this game have nostalgia from when they played it in the past,
Right.
and they're looking at this version. I've got none of that.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
I'm coming in just as here's the game selection committee asked us to do.
Yep.
Let's do it.
Right.
So I turn it on, and the very opening splash screen is well done.
Yeah,
it's very Super NES looking graphics.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then the sound kicks up, and the sound is absolutely jamming.
Yeah.
It is incredible.
It's one of the few tunes I don't just instantly turn off.
Well, here's how good I thought the music was.
Yeah.
Okay. I was going through the options, and the music is just playing on the whole time. And there is a loop, but it's a pretty sizable loop. So I was looked at the options, flipped through the different new game or continue and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And I was like, I don't want this music to end. I'm going to actually let the credits scroll. So I chose credits. And first of all, the credit scroll in this thing is the absolute slowest crawl I've ever seen.
You're talking about the demo part where it just shows you the different.
No, I'm talking about.
Oh, I didn't look at the credits.
Yeah, I actually went to the credits, and it scrolls up. It's probably a 4-minute credits loop.
Yeah.
And it crawls. It really crawls. But I didn't care because I enjoyed the music that much. The music is that good. So I said, okay, let's get into this. Let's start the game up proper. And I hit go. I had all my buttons set up, and I was like, okay.
And you were using the keyboard.
Yes, I did. Keyboard.
And they do recommend.
Yeah.
Yeah. I did not.
And I was like, okay, this is an isometric game. Looks like it's going to be a platform puzzler.
Yeah.
Again, I have no idea what I'm getting into.
Yeah.
And I move around my first character, and the very first scene, there's a power up that is up a set of jumps.
It's like a bunny. It's one of the bunnies. Yeah.
And it's not like it's stacked like a ladder. So you have to actually jump, swing out, swing back. And I played with that until I got up there.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, this feels good.
That seems like it'd be hard with a keyboard because I with the joystick I got it, but I don't know if I could do it with the keyboard.
Yeah, it's the perfect starting room for people who don't know what's going on. Because it says, look, there's no dangers in this room. Here's your objective. There's a bunny up on here that you can get to.
Yeah.
Start feeling out the controls.
Yeah.
That's exactly what I did.
Yeah.
I felt them out. So I was like, that is a really clever opening screen.
Yeah.
And then I was like, okay, look, I went through a door and I was like, okay, let's see what the other character is doing. You've got because you switch between the
there's a button.
head and heels.
A button will switch you between just like in the original. Yeah.
And you aren't in the same place. I mean, you're in the same map structure. The map physically looks the same, like the borders and everything, but you aren't together.
Yeah.
So I ran around with them a little bit, and instantly you could tell one is faster and has better jumps, and one has something else. But you don't start with your items. Because each head and heels has their own specific item that they can get. One gets a gun, one gets a bag.
A bag. Yeah.
And the bag allows you to pick up platforms and place them back down.
I'm better with the bag. Yeah.
And then the other one is a gun that you have to have ammo for, but it lets you shoot your enemies and stun them, and basically stop them from walking around,
Right.
and makes them so you can run into them. So I'm playing through the game, and everything kills you. Well, I shouldn't say that. A lot of rooms will have walls that you run into, you'll die. It has
Floors,
floors that are spiky, they will kill you.
little volcanoes.
And it's a lot of stacking puzzles. Here's your object, there's your goal. How are you going to get there? How are you going to avoid the enemy and then get there? But you're playing as two different characters at this point. So it's use this character's abilities to get to where you're going. And I thought that was a good take. And eventually, after about, I don't know, 30 or 40 screens, the two characters will join up. And it even says one of the hints on the beginning scroll is like you'll meet up at the marketplace.
Yeah.
And you do. You meet up at a marketplace, and it has a whole new room texture, borders. It has a whole new soundtrack, which is also awesome. And then you can, for a while, use each other's abilities to figure out puzzles going forward. Unfortunately, I didn't get a ton past the market.
I'm impressed that you got that far in the amount of time we had.
And the goal of the game is to collect 6 crowns.
Yeah.
And then escape the planet. So I had a lot of fun joining the two back up. The controls are tight. The graphics are incredibly colorful. The sound, which you get to hear that beautiful music track, it just plays as you are playing the game. You get to hear that continuously as you play. It's wonderful music. But just as you start to get sick of it, you get to the marketplace and it changes. So you get this whole new tune to work with or listen to. I did have some perspective issues because it is an isometric game. I had a lot of time when I was leaning in close to my screen trying to line up stuff because while the game the floor is gridded, you do not move in a grid. You have free movement.
Just like the game we covered a couple weeks ago. It's the same thing.
The difference with this is you have to have that free movement because there's a lot of edging where you're just pushing something right up to the edge so you can make it jump off of it and get to a farther away platform. It does a lot of that to its benefit and its detriment, in my opinion. Another thing that this does is it actually has a button for jump and pick something up at the same time, which is something I complained about on a game a while back, not feeling good. This actually has a button to allow you to do that.
Yeah, separate. Yeah, because it's better than having to do a joystick, weird joystick.
Yeah, trying to do both buttons. And because you have the buttons, and it allows you to do that. I really enjoyed the graphics in this area. Let's talk about the graphics for just a second.
Let's break down it before we just get into anything. I want to talk about the options that was just you start the game.
Well, the options are
no, because
your control.
No, they're not. There's more to it than that.
There's difficulty, and I'm going to talk about the difficulty later.
I'm not talking about the difficulty. I'm talking about your ability to change the controls of the keyboard from precise. Did you fiddle with that? Now, do you have, since you use the keyboard, did you notice a major difference in that?
Precise is a lot less wiggle when you jump, is what I found.
Did you use precise?
No, loose felt better.
Right. Again, I use the gamepad. If you play with keyboard, it lets you redefine your keys. If you use a gamepad, you use the basically predetermined game keys. This does have, you do have the ability as you go through this to save your game at certain like checkpoints and whatnot, which we'll get into that in a minute. Graphics. Obviously, I agree with you. The music was.
Well, let's talk about the graphics.
But the graphics on this. So, if you saw the footage earlier of the original game, and we talked about how detailed the graphics were. If you walk up to someone and say, "Listen, we need you to redo the graphics in this," and Simon mentioned that they gave him certain limitations because ZX Next can do some pretty high level stuff. but they gave him limitations on a pallet, I believe he said, and so they tasked him with something. One would think it was almost an impossible task because it's going to be tough to bring those detailed graphics forward in a more colorful way, And these aren't like if you went back and watched the original game and then looked at this game, like it's not like he took the original graphics and just put some color on them. And these are all
These are all
redrawn
redraws.
from the ground up. Now, I got to give. Well, I mean, when they went to Simon, it's not like they just went to some schlub and said do it. They knew this guy had the jack, and I will say this looks spectacular.
Yeah,
This is much like Baggers. When I think to myself, what would a next generation Spectrum do? This is it. This is what they nailed. They nailed that part of it perfectly. The sound, the visuals, they look spectacular, and they also look like they're something you'd see in like the '90s. You mentioned the Super Nintendo.
They're Super Nintendo quality graphics.
Yeah, well, it's not just they are detailed, and the little things that are added in, the little animations that you walk down the hall, little hands will come out between bars, and there's eyeballs in there, and there are vines and stuff, and swords moving around. Just these little details that they put in. I like the little details.
Well,
and they're gorgeous.
That's something I want to talk about.
Yeah.
When you're running through the rooms, you are basically you have the walls of the room, and it's isometric, so of course the walls close to you don't see, and then the walls in the corners you do. There's only so much you can do to make that interesting.
Yeah.
And you can make each room or set of rooms have unique walls, and they do that sort of. But it's more like levels. It's when you go to the next level, you get a new set of tiles, right? But what is done in this game is every room has something going on. It's something that's not necessarily unique to that room, but it is something that is unique to that tile set. So you've got like colored glass, like cathedral type windows in some of the rooms. You'll have knights in armor.
Yeah.
And you'll have different elements to the background. And all of those elements have something else. They might move a little bit. Maybe a picture frame will shift. Maybe the knights will look at you. Swords on the wall will go up and down. It's taking that element and giving it a little bit of motion and a little bit of character that goes a long way with this.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, you are going to be seeing the same rooms over and over and over. And first of all, it makes it harder to navigate because you don't know if you've been in a room before. Yes, you might have a room that's set up differently, but if it looks similar, it's very hard. Where you have those animated elements, it draws your eyes to it and kind of keeps you from getting lost.
Yeah.
In a long way.
And I like the fact that both games did this. We play a lot of these games where you just go through a series of square rooms. Like sometimes you're in a hallway, sometimes you're in a turn. So they actually break that up, which is nice. And you can sit down. I watched a fellow play this alongside of pictures from the old version, and the room. So this is a remake-ish. This added rooms, but I mean the paths and stuff are there. Like so, even you could line these screens up side by side with the original, and you can see your pathway, which is interesting.
Yeah.
Now this one has over 500 rooms. I think it said 510 rooms, something like that, which is enormous amount of rooms if you think about it.
Yeah, I only got to see like a fifth of it.
Yeah, I'm the same way. The scope of it is quite impressive. I want to talk about when I played the original of this, I thought this was a pretty interesting game, but one of my problems with it was I found it one of those games where I would screw up and die because I didn't think the controls were that great. They were okay. So this game runs, I would say, probably 30 to 40% faster than the original.
Yes. And more frames.
Yeah, more frames, but it does run faster. And there has been some. I've read that some people wonder if it's too fast. Even Simon mentioned it in his podcast. And of
Which you
course,
can adjust the speed.
I like the controls, and I thought one thing this game didn't make me think to myself, "Oh, geez, this controller hosed me." I would just be like, "Well, I screwed that up." I thought the controls were pretty tight, just like they were in Baggers, and I didn't have too much trouble with that. But there were some issues that I would like to see if you ever do a point one of this, and I think this would help immensely would be having your character cast a shadow over where you jump. It would make it a lot easier to line stuff up. I would love to see that because one of the hardest things about these isometric games is that, and you mentioned it earlier, is knowing where you're at on the screen in reference to the ground or in
Yeah.
reference to a square. And this game has some very precise jumping and some very precise timing. I mean, you can run through your lives real quick on this game.
And what difficulty level did you play on?
The easiest one.
Did
I
you
did not
start with easy?
I never went off easy.
Okay, this is something hardly any games do. But I'm very appreciative that they did this.
Okay.
I played on normal and easy.
Yeah.
On normal, and I didn't venture to hard because I wasn't doing well enough. But I in retrospect, I wish I would have checked it out. There are more than just how many lives you get different when you go from easy to normal.
All
Okay.
right.
They turn jumps where you have to jump over an object, those little lava cubes. They turn those into spearheads,
All right.
which makes them easier to jump. You might go in a room and you have one extra box to move around. And it's all this is done to make it actually easier. Not just the enemies have less health, because in this game that is irrelevant. It's not just you have more lives, although you do have more lives. It actually makes the game easier to navigate, which is this whole game is a puzzle platformer, okay?
Yeah. It's the embodiment of that.
And it makes that easier. It makes the platforming elements easier, which big thumbs up. Because I can see playing this, right? On easy, getting through it, getting the feel for the game, and then saying, okay, now I feel like I can play this on normal. Less lives, more difficult jumps, less material and boxes to work with, and playing through it again and having a new experience.
Yeah.
I really, really appreciate that. Because, and it's something, if you are going to play this, and I recommend people play this version of the game. And maybe the other versions of it did it. I don't know. I only played this version of the game.
Sure.
If you are going to play this and you're only going to play it for an hour, you said, I'm going to try this game out. An hour is all I got. Just go to easy.
Yeah.
Play through it. If you are going to sit down for several hours, start on normal so you can see the difference that normal to easy makes and appreciate it. I think that is such a unique element of the game that it is worth people exploring. I really appreciated that.
When it comes to something else we should mention is as you control these characters, we mentioned that the control was tight. This is one of those games where it's like you get like a floaty jump and you can sort of control your descent. That is something that is real. It's an ability you'll have to hone while playing this game and with an isometric view. Floaty jump control is you're in a whole different world in this game and it's mandatory. It's a mandatory skill. You're gonna die a million times, and it's one of those games where you're gonna have to sit down. I sat down with it 4 or 5 days ago for the first time, and went in and got hammered. But the game gives you plenty of lives on easy, and also switching between two characters. That's great. If you get frustrated, see what the other guy can get into.
Until you join them up.
Move around a little bit and see how that works. But this game, I mean, you could walk right into a room and your vision can be impaired by the isometric angle, and you can be killed without even hardly knowing what hit you.
Yeah.
You could if you did the gameplay we're showing here is actually my gameplay. There was a screen where you had to assemble 4 dice to stand on top of them to get through this door. All right, and the whole time there's a robot rolling around. It took me a while to get through this. That's something else. I think the puzzles are obtainable for doofus like myself.
They get harder.
I'm sure they do, but I mean, me and Bo have talked about this a million times. I want to feel like I'm making progress and learning, and that's what I was doing. But I spent all this time stacking these dice to get to this door, and the second I went through the door, I was on a conveyor belt. It conveyed me 2 steps, and I was into the spikes over and over. And I'd spend like it's like it was so frustrating. I was like, I spent all that time getting out of that room, but that's this game. There's a Rick Dangerous sort of a thing going on where you're going to die a bunch of times until you figure out what they want you to do.
Yeah, there is. And
I'm saying you have to not let that get to you if you want to have a good time with the game.
To be completely honest, on easy, I wish there were just no lives. I know that they do that because you can collect golden chickens, which is basically currency. And then at any point you can go into a store and trade your golden chickens in for extra lives.
Yeah.
So I understand from that perspective why they have lives on easy. But the reason why I got to a point and then quit playing was I got into a room where I just died. I mean, just over and over and over, and it was on something that should have been simple. I just had a hard time with it, perspective, whatever. And I died so many times that I got frustrated, and then I was out of lives, because if you run out of lives with one character, you can still play the other one, but what's the point?
Yeah.
Because it gets to a point where you have to
At that point, it's just practice, yeah.
So I really wish on easy there were unlimited lives.
Me too.
Well,
I could have used them so I could learn how to do these rooms. But I mean, this is the old game was hard. This is the old school UK way. They punish ignorance.
But I don't mind being punished and being brought back to the beginning of a room.
Yeah.
But I don't want to have to traverse 30 rooms or 40 rooms or 50 rooms to get back to the point where I was, just to die over and over again.
Well,
I know there are save states and all that. Not save states, but save checkpoints.
Yeah.
But it was still frustrating.
So Brent mentioned, I don't have every pickup right now. There's quite a few, and they're listed at sort of at the bottom of the screen. You have like a screen that tells you what you're carrying. The 6 crowns, as Brent mentioned and the docs mentioned, those are ultimately what you're trying to get to win the game.
That's how you win.
The fish of reincarnation are like the checkpoints or save points. Then you've got Hooter. The Hooter lets you shoot, lets head shoot, and he shoots donuts. You've also got to pick up the donuts, the ammo. Then you've got the marvelous bag, which is who lets heels hold the thing. And then you've got the rabbits of power that will give you enhance abilities, gain life. I think you can use those when you go to the marketplace. You were talking about not the market, but the store, the store, but where you can go trade.
The only thing I ever bought was lives.
Yeah, that's about the same way. So there are other things available, but I never did buy anything else.
The power-ups you pick up are temporary.
Yeah, super jump, super fast.
And it's based off of not time you're in possession of the item, but movements or jumps that you make after getting the power-up.
Oh, really?
Because if you just stand still, it doesn't count down. I appreciate that, but I also was never like, now I've got this power-up. Because I would assume, and I could be wrong, especially with later levels, since the power-ups don't respawn, that you don't actually need the power-ups to complete any room. And the only power-up for me that made any difference was there's a power-up that makes you invincible.
Yeah.
Wow,
I need that.
It let me run on some spikes for a while. But most of them are run faster, which is great if you're just navigating through rooms you've already been through or just trying to get to a spot. And there's ones that let you jump higher. But again, like I said, I don't think I ran into any puzzles where I needed those to move forward. And in fact, there was one power-up that I just had to waste it. It was a jump power-up that allowed me to jump farther. But the platform I needed to jump on was 1 square away.
Yeah.
So I just had to waste all of my power-ups and then make that jump.
Yeah.
It's that kind of things. They're power-ups, but
Yeah, I like what they brought to the table here, and with the additional stuff. The 6-channel sound is nice. The graphics are beautiful. I will say on the web page it lists that this has been compatibility tested, of course, with the Next, the Ngo, which we know that works, the X-Berry Pi, and the Mister, which we know that works. And Brent, you played this via emulator, and
Yeah.
so we know that works. So I think you're going to be okay. These guys know what they're doing when it comes to programming. So we can both agree with. I mean, there were a few minor quibbles, and of course the difficulty. But I mean, this one's a winner, right? I mean, we're down with that.
Yeah, I think this is a good game. If
Yeah.
isometric games are your thing, this is a really good one to get out
Yeah.
and play. Of course, from my understanding, it was a really good one back in the day.
Sure.
Too. If you aren't a fan of isometric games, this is not going to change your opinion.
Well, I mean, I'm not the biggest fan, but I will say having like really nice graphics and tight control is a big help. That's one of my problems with isometric. It's not really the isometrics. It's just the ZX. It's an old machine. A lot of the games aren't as snappy as you can do on this, and this is a much snappier, better to. It's like having a ZX Spectrum game, but with everything better. That's what it's supposed to be.
Again, this, I mean, it's working off of, a 1980s game, right?
Yeah.
So the levels, the layout, the stuff like that, they didn't, from my understanding, they didn't change enough to revolutionize isometric gaming. That wasn't their point. Their point was to remake a classic game for a nostalgic or retro enthusiast to come back and play.
Yeah.
And from that perspective, I think they did a terrific job. The controls are tight. The music is fantastic. Walking into a room that has a golden chicken, plays the chicken dance music.
Yeah, I was wondering if you noticed that. I was like, it's an elaborate version. And I thought to myself, it's good to know that this is worldwide, that people know the chicken dance song. I remember going to the skate arena and they'd fire that up and you'd be out there doing your stupid dance and skates. I was highly pleased by that.
But, and this is an 8 out of 10 game, okay? If this is your jam, I think this is an 8 out of 10, solid 8 out of 10.
Wait a minute. Oh, I'm sorry.
However, this is not revolutionizing isometric games, which I don't think it ever set out to do.
No.
But this doesn't have, at least that I experienced, groundbreaking new ideas or concepts for an isometric game.
Well, I mean, it's a modernized remake. Why would you even mention that?
Because, again, I'm coming out of this not playing the old one. So I can only bring to the table what I've experienced.
Do you have a favorite isometric game that you played that's not, say, I don't know, Marble Madness?
Well...
Okay, there you go. But I'm saying that isometric games weren't a big deal over here. They didn't get used that much. Your Crystal Castles and stuff. There weren't a ton of them that you can go back and it came from America. So you wouldn't have played that many. I played a lot of them on the ZX. Head Over Heels was at the top of the heap. So technically, it revolutionized it back then, and then you brought it forward.
But it didn't revolutionize it with this release.
Fair enough. So we did get one review before. I want to go over top of the price, and we're going to talk about this review first. Our buddy Jed Byrne chimed in. He said, the original Head Over Heels is one of my all-time favorite games. It has incredible graphics and amazing gameplay. I revisit it every so often and play through to completion. Obviously, I was very excited when the next version was announced for KS2. Graphically, it looks better than ever. Simon Butler has perfectly preserved Bernie Drummond's quirky style and added bold color and playful animation. Incredible. I agree. Comparing this to the Retrospect remake available on Steam, you can see the superiority of the graphics. Retrospect made the mistake of going too high res, where Butler has kept the original's chunky charm. We had a quick look at the Steam version of this. By the way, unaffiliated in any way to this version.
Yeah.
And it looked. I agree with what he said, and also the jumping on it looked dreadful. And I haven't played it. However, the retrospect remake does have one important graphical improvement: the addition of a shadow on the floor. There you go. This makes it much easier to navigate between jumping platforms. Without it, you struggle when guiding head through the air. The retrospect version also captures the controls of the original. Unfortunately, that's not the case with the next remake. Everything moves faster, and this is a real problem on the heel screens with nasties that move randomly or chase you. Many lives are lost getting past these. While I can complete the original on the next, I'm still struggling to get heels to the marketplace. I'm getting there, and I'm determined to see new graphics and screens in the other areas. Despite my frustration, is actually a bonus being presented with a brand new challenge from this old favorite. Soon I will reunite the heroes and destroy the Empire of Black Tooth. There you go. So,
And
well said.
For the record, just from footage I've seen, getting them together is like 1/5 of the game, because I got them together and collected no crowns.
Yeah.
So unless you collect all the crowns at one time or something, the game is massively huge.
And I will say, speaking on the difficulty, before we get into the pricing, I was listening to Simon Butler's most recent Dinosaur Pie, and he mentioned that he was surprised that no one had done it on YouTube, had done a complete walkthrough of this game. And he's right. I was surprised at the lack of footage of this game on YouTube. I really was. There are maybe a handful of reviews and a couple little specks of footage. But none of these reviews got like I got further than anyone than any of the reviews I saw.
And I got further than you did.
And you got further than me. And we're a couple of doofy. I mean, Brent's a good hand. I'm okay. But I mean, do you think do you think you could ever beat this game if you had enough time to expend on it?
No.
You don't think you've got the jack?
No. And the reason my downfall is when I get to a new challenge, I can easily spend 6 to 8 lives.
Yeah. Yeah, you can lose lives in this quick.
And I think my frustration would overflow before I could get to the end, knowing that I'd have to get back to that point every time. I think if there was a code or something to give me unlimited lives, which unlimited lives is not, it's helpful for this game, right? Obviously. Yeah. But it would not be like, oh, unlimited lives. It's not like Contra. You still have to do the thing. And doing the thing is the actual challenge part of the game.
It's a lot like a Manic Miner or something. Like you could have by the way, there's no time limit on this either, which is great. So you can sit there, but I mean, that doesn't mean anything. Like you said, you have to complete the challenges.
Yes.
And the challenges ain't easy, brother. They're tough. So, I would say that this is one to take on if you've got a lot of jack. But I mean, I did get better as the week went on.
Well, I certainly improved.
And so there's something to be said. And I will say, having played the original version of this, and having played this one, and having played games like Manic Miner on the original ZX, this game doesn't feel like you've got no chance. Like you've got a chance. You're in it with a chance, brother.
Yeah, because there are some rooms that you walk into and you say, my objective is clear. I just need to physically pull it off. And there are rooms that you walk into and you say, I don't know how to do this. Let me start trying to figure it out. And those are two very distinct feelings in gaming that are both nicely on display here.
Yeah.
And it helps cut down on the monotonous nature that some of these games might have.
Yeah.
Having both those types of challenge in this game are really nice.
Oh, one more thing I forgot to mention. When you move the characters around, sometimes it doesn't seem like they're looking in the right way. Did you notice? Like the way they're shaped, there's the characters you control themselves. They don't have a ton of animation, like their feet move, and so I would get confused about which way I was facing. Did you have that much trouble?
I didn't have that problem, but I understand what you're saying.
Yeah, it was an odd thing. I don't know if I'm the only one, but I wanted to mention that. So let's get to the actual pricing of the game, because we want to talk about this. We always do. This version came out, of course, this was a Kickstarter benefit game, so if you were part of that, you would have gotten it along with your Kickstart. For the rest of us, you had 3 versions, and you could really only buy 2 now. So originally, there was a deluxe version of this, This came with a printed box, a 8x6 head over heels postcard signed by Simon Butler and Michael Flashware, a head over heels pin badge, a CD of the game. That'd be nice, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
And the game music composed by Space Fractal CD and including extra remastered / remix tracks. Might have to look that up.
Look that up.
That might be good.
Incredible.
Anyway, that right there would have ran you $55 a dollar. I think those were dollars. Let me see if it's dollars or pounds. What they've got this listed out. Yeah, these are dollars. So $55. Not bad for what you're getting. You get some autograph stuff.
If this was part of your childhood, I can certainly see paying that.
Yeah, and I will say it's an attractive looking. I mean, they're just like baggers. They're good looking thing. So next down the line, if you can get the standard version, this is another one. This is a physical copy, printed manual, SD card, a digital manual in PDF format, three poster images that are on the SD card, and you get a plastic DVD type case. So it's basically just like a case, like a nice, like a PlayStation 5 or something like case, or a Wii. Wii probably better because it's got an SD card in it with that stuff in it. Yeah. So that right there is going to set you back $29.99. That's for your physical game collectors right there. Well, I mean, that's what it is.
Okay.
All right. So that is, so you can buy, that's a physical game. Now, if you want to buy the digital, which is what we were gifted. This one comes with the manual on there, and what comes with the games, and some additional files to help you run in some different operating systems. This thing will run you $12.99, which is exactly the same as Baggers was. That seems to be their digital price now.
And I think that's a fair price.
Well, yes, I would say. Well, I mean, I would say yes, it's fair. I think what they're trying now. I just got this ZX Next clone, so I'm not Commander Next by any stretch. I think what they've got is sort of like a digital marketplace thing going for the ZX Next. I don't know if you can go there with the Next or whatever. And so I assume this stuff would be priced appropriately. I will say, I took the download. I put it on an SD card. It had the EX filing, that's what it was, on there. I ran it. It worked. It was. I mean, keep in mind, I have a limited knowledge of what I'm doing on the Next. I mean, I've used a little bit. We had no problem. He had no problem. So running it's no problem. It works, and it's all one self-contained file, which is fine. I would not. $12.99 is as far up the scale of a digital download as I like to go.
Yeah,
and that's and I will say this, and again, keep in mind that we're calm like I see him. You have to have a top shelf game for me to go that far a digital download. You're moving up the line there.
And again, just like with Baggers, we said this before. Personally, I think $13 is too much for a digital download that you can't just click it and run.
Yeah, well, you want to, yeah, but I mean,
that you have to jump through the hoops.
Now, I don't think they can legally do that or something. I don't know if there's a reason why you can't do that.
Something I want to say about this and Baggers, and this is really, it's an unfair comparison because there's two completely different game types. But if I was going to, if the world was ending and I could have one next game that I was going to play for eternity, I would actually pick this over Baggers
because of the length.
Because of it felt more like I was learning, and it felt like I was going to get more for my money than I did Baggers. Now, that said, in a modern world where I'm surrounded by games and I can pretty much play whatever I want whenever I want, if I was only going to look at one of these games, I would choose Baggers. Because I think Baggers, for me, and of course this all comes down to personal preference, for me, I had more fun playing Baggers. That doesn't mean Baggers is a better game, but for me, I had more fun playing it. I also could see myself going back to Baggers. I'm probably not going to go back to Head Over Heels because I don't see a scenario where I'm going to finish the game due to the difficulty.
I don't know. You had pretty good luck out of the gate, though. You may be able to get pretty far in this, but you're a good hand.
I am a good hand, but this was... It's also a different dopamine hit for this game. This game, you have a room that's difficult that you have to figure out either the puzzle or work the mechanics. And when you complete that room, it feels good, and you're like, yeah, let's go to the next room, right?
Yeah.
And as soon as you hit that wall uh, of I can't get through this room or I can't figure it out, but I know I need to do this to progress, that is a straight up the chart frustration curve.
Yeah.
And it, especially when you die out and you have to do it again, all of it again or partially again depending on where your checkpoint is. uh and for me, I'm not gaming like that for this. There are games I will put in that kind of effort, but this isn't one of them.
You know, this is one of those. Here's the thing about it, modern head over heels. It's a modern reimagining or remake of the original with all the good and bad that came.
Yes.
And here's the thing: in '87 in the UK, a game like Head Over Heels had all the hot things that kids like exploration, figuring out these puzzles. This is something that was really popular at the time. And it's still popular with plenty of people. But incredible difficulty was rolled in.
Yes.
Back in those days, we played a million of them, so we know.
Yep.
And you're right. I love the exploration parts. I love seeing stuff I hadn't seen before, and I'm an old guy, so I was around when this was going on. So for me, that's fun. I like that. But I don't like the super duper difficulty of some areas. Again, this is not Jet Set Willie,
No,
where you're like,
no.
the author hates you and hates everyone you've ever loved. This game, you will have successes along with your failures.
Yes.
That's what kept me coming back.
Yeah.
As for the comparison, again, it's a stupid comparison between this and Baggers, but they're the two most recent next games we played. I'm more of an arcade twitchy guy than I am an exploration guy. With that much said, when this got rolled up, I was like, I don't know, man. I remember being lukewarm with the original Head Over Heels. I had a lot more fun with this. I had a lot more success with it, and I also just enjoyed it overall more. It's beautiful. I hate to put this guy. I'm going to put everyone over just a little bit more. I feel like people are going to be like, "Oh, they caught them a game and they're giving them the house."
No, that doesn't work.
Listen,
Or at least not with me.
what is when they do these modern remakes? Like, what would happen if the ZX Spectrum had a new version? Right? I'm lukewarm from the concept, or the Pico. It's just like, what are we doing? But the one thing that I like about the next stuff, the top shelf stuff that we've played, they actually get it. What would happen? And what would happen?
Yeah.
And we play old games, and so this feels right. And the amount of Simon mentioned that the Mike's isometric engine might be used in a couple more games. Good. It's a tremendous engine. He did a great job, and it feels good. With a few tweaks, it can be perfect. Okay. Butler is all he pulled off. I mean, I wouldn't want to be the guy to take that job, to be honest with you, because you're getting to compare. You're on the footsteps of giants here, and only a giant can walk in their footsteps. So that makes sense. But the music was a real surprise. Very good.
It was off the charts. The original music was good.
The
too.
funny thing is, the Spectrum. Most of the Spectrum games have no music unless you have go up to 48K stuff, or from on up. But the music in this was a surprise, right? But overall, they did the best. I think this is the best version, with a couple nibbles of Head Over Heels that you're going to get in the format that they were presenting it in.
Yeah,
and so and there you go. That's all I got to say about it. I enjoyed it quite a bit, the branch, and I'll be interested to see what those boys have next, and hopefully they'll do real well. If you're a person playing this game, and you were good at it, I urge you to record yourself and stick it up there, because I would kind of like to see the crap that I cannot see.
Yeah, or there are rooms that I would like to know the solutions to, especially when you start teaming up, that I either couldn't figure out or died too many times before I figured it out. So
Yeah,
if anyone wants to do a playthrough of this, I would love to see it.
But we're both okay overall. The price, it's okay.
It's It's fine.
It's you couldn't charge more,
No.
and I'm like, I would like to see this get snuggled in there to around the $9.99.
Yeah.
But I mean,
In its
I don't
in its
think this
current
is a
format.
travesty or anything.
No, and man, it's so tough because I know these indie projects are working their butt off,
Yeah,
and I want to see them get the money they deserve.
yeah.
And that's why I try to support, especially. I mean, I try to support all of gaming because I don't want gaming to go away, but I especially try to support indie developers uh, that are doing things that I enjoy seeing being done. Even if I don't necessarily, even if it's not my type of game, the fact that they are trying to bring this stuff forward for a generation younger than me, big thumbs up.
You know, you've got to think. So, if you're a fan of the original,
Mm-hmm.
this would be like Christmas time.
Yes,
If can you think of a game that you played back in the day that you'd like to see get a treatment like this?
tons. I don't even want to go into it
I
right
mean,
now.
you could
It's a whole
that could be a
episode.
whole show right
Yeah.
there because it would be if you said, okay, get me a dream team together that could pull it off, all right, and then here my like out like something like a Blue Max or something like that. I would love to see a game like that get an update. You know,
Don't. Yeah, they don't just crap all over it.
yeah, exactly. So onwards and upwards, Brent.
Yes.
On our next Our Sinclair couple weeks, we will be playing. This is what I've heard so much about. We're back to the original ZX as we play Where Time Stood Still.
Oh,
The adventure
lovely
game.
name.
So yeah, that's a cool sounding game name. That'll be in a couple weeks. What do we got cooking next week, the Brent?
Next week, Aaron, ARG presents 300. We're going to have a unique episode. We're not just going to sit down and do our normal wheel spin.
We don't know what we're doing exactly, but we'll probably be spinning wheels, I'd guess.
So we really hope you come and join us for that. I think it's going to be a good time. It's going to be a lot looser and just chat about some of our experiences.
It's going to be a looser, you say.
That's
We're going to come in here in our underpants, smoking a cigar and eating Cheetos. That's going to be
just right off. No, but I think it'll be something. I think it'll be a fun episode just to sit around and talk to people and look back over 300 episodes. That's a lot of episodes.
Yeah, we've done okay on that one. Yeah. Before we go, I want to once again thank Rusty Pixels for sending us over their game to look at. You know, I was thinking about this earlier. Like, we're not the king dongs of media, but we get a pretty good, especially in the podcast world, we can reach out pretty far. And I'm always surprised that like very few indie outfits contact us. Like we did Happy's games, we worked with Midnight Brew, a couple other guys. But like, if you're someone who's toiling away on these games and you'd like somebody to look at your game, I mean, we may kill your game. I guess that could be part of it.
Also, just because you send us something doesn't mean we're going to make a show.
Right? Yeah. But it was something to think about. But I want to thank those guys to the number. I also want to thank as to Scooby, our good buddy Scoob, for once again sending me this Ingo. I promise you, this will be put to good use every week. It's gonna be a lot of fun. I think that's all we got, Brent. So we'll see you next week for ARG 300. And until then, rewind tape
and press play on your emulator.